So, if you want to stop feeling overwhelmed and experiencing negative emotions, it's important that we understand how to control and regulate our negative feelings. We all experience negative feelings. We feel lost, stressed, overwhelmed, we have a bad life situation, we feel stuck and unable to realize our full potential. The world seems to be spinning just fine while our little corner is tossed in chaos. What normally ends up happening is we experience some temporary relief from these emotions. The fights stop, our paycheck feels a little bit bigger, and we achieve some small version of success. Eventually, all of these temporary reliefs revert back to the original feelings you were experiencing. The money problems creep back in, the fights with our partner start up again, and we're once again stuck in a rut, unable to realize how we can get out of it. Then we are all faced with the crushing realization that negative emotions come in cycles and they seem inevitable. Simply put, we can't avoid them. In this video, I'm going to show you how we can minimize these negative feelings, be happy, achieve more, and find fulfillment in our lives. To do this, there's three main things we have to tackle. The first is emotional control. Emotions are the first thing we have to overcome. We have to understand how to deal and react with our emotions. They're very powerful, but learning how to deal with them is like a muscle. The more we do it, the better we get at it and the stronger it becomes. The single best thing to help me understand how to regulate emotions better is to realize that they are inevitable, but they're temporary. You are going to experience emotions, we all are. If you don't, then you have a bigger problem probably, and I recommend seeing a doctor. But they are temporary. They will go away. How you feel today is not how you're gonna feel for the rest of your life. Yes, these feelings might last for a couple days, maybe even a week, maybe even a few months, but they are temporary, and you will enter different stages of emotions throughout your life. We cannot allow them to dictate our every action or every thought and how we're gonna operate our daily lives. They are powerful, but they're temporary, and we can deny them power by simply not acting on them. If you feel extremely angry, just don't do the angry thing you want to do. Don't send the angry text, don't yell at your boss, don't break your keyboard, speaking from experience on that one. Just accept the feelings, move on, and figure out what you can do next. And trust me, I know that they are powerful. Your emotions can seriously make you feel like the world is ending or your life is at stake and that everything is going wrong and that nothing's ever going to be good. I totally understand that. I've been there and I still get there sometimes. We've all experienced those emotions multiple times and we're still here today. I'm still making this video, you're still doing whatever you're doing, and it's just a part of life. The key aspect is realizing they're temporary, accepting they're inevitable, and understanding that we have the power to deny our emotions their power. By simply not acting solely on emotion, we deny all the power they have over us. Yes, they might make us feel a certain way, but as long as we don't take an action solely based on that emotional response, we completely deny it to have any negative influence in our life. It's just there, the emotions are going to be there, but we're no longer giving it the power over how we live our lives, because this is how we get caught in a cycle. We feel a negative emotion, we take a negative action, it creates a new negative emotion, we take another negative action, and the cycle just rinses and repeats, and we're constantly stuck in a cycle of negativity and bad outcomes. Once we've accepted that, we can move on to the second phase, which is understanding the why behind our emotions. This is an extremely powerful technique that I learned. Basically, the real point is, how do we understand why we're feeling the way that we feel? But the way that it worked best for me was just constantly asking myself why, how, or what. What I mean by this is when we experience a negative emotion, so for example, if you're feeling depressed, you're feeling anxious, you're just generally feeling overwhelmed and stressed, start by asking yourself the first question of why. Why do I feel this way? I found myself in a situation a few years ago. I was stressed, anxious, and a little bit depressed when I first graduated college because I just didn't know how to navigate this post-grad life. I really didn't enjoy my job. I was anxious and stressed because I didn't understand how I was going to make enough money to be able to move out. All of those unknowns and situations that felt impossible to me were creating these negative feelings in my life. But at the time, I didn't know that those were the causes of my negative feelings. To be able to get there, it took me weeks and months of just constantly questioning myself why, how, and what. Why was I experiencing these emotions? How was I going to overcome them? And what did I actually want to achieve that was going to allow me to stop experiencing these negative emotions? And that's been the single biggest thing that's helped me, and I've seen it help a lot of others in my lives that I've taught this to, which is interrogate yourself. Frankly, is how I did it. Just constantly ask yourself why and dig deeper, because the first why is not going to get you there. The second why probably isn't. The third why might, but it might take 10 whys. But however many it's going to take is what it's going to take. The real lesson is, how do we get to the bottom of why we're feeling this way? The main issue I needed to solve was the job that I didn't like. I genuinely started to hate what I was doing every day. I knew it wasn't going to serve me in the long term. And it was creating a negativity cycle because every day I get up for work and I'm reminded how much I didn't like it, how much it wasn't getting me where I wanted to be, and that I wasn't going to be able to do the things I wanted to do if I was staying in this position. So ultimately, once you're able to see what the causal problem is, because that's the whole purpose of this section of the video, is how do we understand the why? And my advice to you, if you're trying to replicate this in your own life, is to start by asking why, write out some responses. It could be on a piece of paper, in a note-taking app, whatever. You probably have some initial answers, but then dig a little bit deeper. Why on each of those bullet points, or how on each of those bullet points, or what on each of those bullet points, and get yourself closer to what the real problem is. The initial answer I came up with was my job, but then after honestly a year of kind of digging into why I was feeling this way, I realized the real core of the problem was I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, point in case. I didn't like that job, but I also had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. And so even though I ended up changing jobs, I was making more money, and it was in an industry I thought I wanted to be in, but then I ended up hating what the day-to-day of that job looked like. And it didn't really, I thought the job was the problem, but the job really wasn't the problem, because I got a new job and the feeling still stayed there. The real problem was I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was never going to be able to find a job that I wanted if I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. Granted, I didn't have this video right now, but it took me a year to get there. And so that's will be my advice to someone who's in a similar position is, if you're still making changes and still can't get out of the negativity cycle, it might be because you just don't fully yet understand what the real underlying problem is. So once you have a better understanding of what the underlying problem is, we can move on to phase 2 of this, which is creating your action plan. This is the easiest part of the whole video and this whole process, because all we have to do now is reverse engineer everything we just discussed in the previous section. So now that you have your whys, you understand what the causal problems are. Now we need to reverse engineer those into the specific steps we need to take to get to where we want it to be. I updated my resume, I started interviewing at new places, I was looking for new jobs, I ultimately switched a job, and all of that didn't solve the problem. So what ultimately ended up happening was I took a step back, I stopped applying for jobs, I spent a little bit more time in the job I was currently in, even though I didn't like it, but I didn't rush into a new position. I took the time to really look at the different jobs that were out there, the different avenues I could go into, the different industries, and see how you can do this in your own life. Take whatever core problem you're focusing on, reverse engineer that into 3 to 5 steps that you can take today, tomorrow, next week. Very short time frames. This is important, because if you try to say, I'm going to make, if my problem is money and I'm going to make $1 million by next year, that's probably not possible. Or even if it is possible, it's too overwhelming in the short term. So we need to break this down into something that we can do tomorrow. So if you're struggling and you want to make more money, what can you do tomorrow? You can probably update your resume. You can probably look for higher paying jobs. You can probably start learning a high income skill, something like SEO, marketing, sales, product design. Those are all very lucrative skills that you could get into. So reverse engineering these into an action plan. You're just going to list out 3 to 5 things that you can do today to next week that will move you closer toward whatever you're looking to achieve. And each of these things that we outline in this plan is a mini objective that we can chase. So for example, if you want to make more money, learning a skill is probably going to be the most critical aspect, because if you're not making the money you want to make, it's most likely because you do not have the skills that you need to be making more money. So pick a skill, start learning it online, start applying that skill. Those are all things that you can do today, tomorrow, and the next day that can move you closer. And what that mini objective is, learning that skill. That's the objective. The goal is making more money. The objective is, what skill can I learn and how can I learn it? So this is how we can reverse engineer our problems into a step-by-step plan and an objective that we can chase day after day. The tip here is that we have to make it manageable. I struggled with this when I was first trying to make all my changes. I tried to do everything all at once. I ended up feeling multiple times right back into my negative feelings. So the way that we overcome that is make it manageable. Break it up into things that we can do today, tomorrow, next week. Notice I repeated that like 5 times in this section because I have to remind myself, and hopefully you guys get that out of it too. But it's so important, because if we don't make it manageable, we will fail. We will not be able to succeed because we are trying to do way too much at the same time. Which brings us to the last point of this video, which is we have to adjust our expectations. If you take nothing away from this video, please just watch this section like 3 times, because this is the point that I failed at and that I wish I had someone to tell me 5 years ago and 3 years ago when I was going through these changes. When you're in a negative space, you are never going to be able to do your best work. And yes, some people perform very well under pressure, but even so, those people still, if you're in an extremely negative headspace, it's difficult to do your best work. Moreover, it's very difficult to take on a lot because you're already dealing with your emotional load, your emotional stress, the bad situation that you have. All of those things are compounding effects that take a toll on you. You have to adjust your expectations. If you're watching this video, you're most likely someone who is a high performer or has really big goals, wants to achieve a lot, which is amazing. We often are people that struggle with understanding that we need to have patience. It's not all gonna happen today. So we need to take a step back and adjust our expectations for the short term. I'm not saying you have to say that you're not gonna achieve what you want to achieve. What I'm saying is you can achieve, you're not gonna achieve 110% improvement tomorrow. If you want to double your salary, it's not going to happen tomorrow, right? If you want to have a better relationship, it's not going to happen tomorrow. You have to take small steps today that a year from now, 5 years from now, are going to wind up getting you where you want to be. And that's a time horizon that we need to have. But it's difficult to get into that headspace, especially when we're in the negative, because everything feels so critical to right now. Emotions make us feel a sense of urgency, which is great because we can use that to fuel us in the right direction. But the flip side of that is that it often makes us feel like we need to solve everything right now. And so the way that I like to frame it is, I don't want to be chasing 110% improvement tomorrow. I want to be chasing a 5% improvement today for the next 30 days, for the next 7 days. I would rather get 35% better in a week than risk trying to get 110% better tomorrow and failing. Because the worst thing we can do is try to do everything today, not do it, repeat the negative cycle, and just keep doing that for weeks and weeks and weeks, and we're still stuck where we are. So that would be the most critical point of all of this, is adjust our expectations, shoot for something manageable today, plan to do a 1, 3, 5% improvement, whatever that looks like. That could be learning a new skill or having better conversations, acting less on our emotions. Your entire plan right now could be just applying the principles from this video, and it's going to take time for you. You don't have to do it all today. The important part is sticking through it for the long term. If you are someone who is able to just work at this every single day for the next year, you're going to be decades ahead of yourself if you just didn't do what you have been for the past few days or weeks, which is probably stuck in a negativity cycle. Because this is the parting thought I'll leave you with, which is a framework I use when I'm sometimes struggling with trying to get it all done today. Would you rather have a few weeks where you knock it out of the park, but then you fail, you wind up in this negative space again, and then you're repeating this cycle for a few months, and then you have a few good weeks, and then a few bad months? Or would you rather change how you approach it, do a little bit every day, you're not ever knocking it out of the park right now, but you are constantly improving every single day for months instead of falling back into the negativity cycle? So that's the framework that I use to kind of keep myself on track and prevent myself from falling back into bad habits. But I hope you all enjoyed this video. That's a wrap for today. Let me know down below what you're struggling with. We can tackle it as a community, and I hope to see you all in the next video.